Alright guys, this is I think video 4 in the little panic attack series that I'm doing. A little sort of uh, mental health first aid, in a little framework for dealing with panic attacks and getting out of them. So we've talked about the first step, which is nutrition, in the previous video, and you can go check that out if you haven't seen that one yet. But the second piece that I wanted to talk about today, the second tool, the second line of action, which is huge, and it's equally as important as the nutrition, but I think it does come maybe a little bit later in the process when you're able to implement this with a clearer mind, a calmer body, and when your physical and physiological health is in a better place. And that's the mindset piece, which is kind of general. Like, mindset's a whole big thing in terms of how you approach what you're going through, and that'll be a different video in terms of understanding the context or understanding what it means to kind of have something happen in your life that you don't like anxiety or like panic attacks, how to kind of contextualize that, come to terms with it, and kind of accept it. But for the time being, what I want to talk about is more the tool, the tool that you can use, that is essentially training your brain and training your mind, so that you can kind of resist falling into kind of an uncontrollable anxiety state or panic state. And this can be done with some pretty simple meditation techniques and some pretty simple practices. And so, cutting right to the chase, there's more and more science to show that our brains are plastic. They're especially plastic when we're younger, and we used to think that stopped as we got older. And now we know that that's not the case, that we always have the ability to retrain our brains and to actually change what goes on in terms of the neural connections in our minds. And to get the science behind it shows that there's different parts of our brains, and there's a kind of a fight or flight. The amygdala is like, I think, the sort of the alarm system, and that's where we can spend a lot of time. But what we can do is train ourselves to use different parts of our brain and to kind of strengthen certain muscles in our brain so that we don't need to operate the same way we did before, whether that's whatever that is, whether that's a fear or a habit or whatever it is. We have the ability to change how we respond to things, our behavior, our feelings even, and even our physical bodies and our physical makeup, which is pretty neat, and there's some pretty cool research about that. But to simplify things, the one way I heard it is that, let's say there's a a field, long grass, and you've tramped down a path because you keep walking on the same spot, right? You keep packing it down, and essentially that's kind of like the anxiety path or the panic path that's well worn in your brain. It's kind of there, and it's well worn, so it's really easy to slip into that. And if you aren't careful, that's the path you're going to take every time. Every time your trigger hits, you're going to fall into that path, and it's going to be hard to maybe break out of that, because that's the easiest, the least resistance, if that makes sense, is to kind of fall into that same habit, start reacting the same way. And essentially what we're going to do with some mindfulness practice is start to tramp down a new path. And that new path is responding in a different way to triggers and stimulus and anxiety, to the point where even if it's going on, you don't need to focus on that as much, and you don't need to let that take control of you. You don't need to let that demand all of your attention, and it won't consume you in the same way. So you're going to start making a new path, blazing a new trail. The other one's still going to be there, and you're still maybe going to fall into it sometimes, but what happens is you make this new one stronger and stronger, a better and better path. That other one's going to start to grow back because you're going to start to not use it as much. It's going to start to fill in, so it's going to get easier and easier to use the new path. This can seem pretty kind of like out there and stupid when it starts, but the name of the game here is, kind of buying into it, and then a little bit of consistency. This isn't just like positive thinking. This is actual, this is science. It works. Even like 2 minutes a day of mindfulness meditation can help. And that's a whole topic in itself, but I recommend starting with an app like Headspace or Calm. They have great little intros, and you can start with as little as, a couple minutes a day to start training your mind to be aware of what's going on and to not be sucked into these things as much. So you just start to work out that muscle a little bit. You just start to break down that new trail, so that before too long, even 2 weeks, a month, 6 weeks, and then it grows. It starts to exponentially impact the way you can react to things, and it almost becomes kind of like a mini superpower at a certain point, because you literally have the ability to kind of watch what's going on like it's in a movie, and have that separation, almost like it's on the screen. There could be something happening, and you're kind of like, okay, I know this is happening, but wait a sec, do I want to get totally drawn in, or do I know the movie's kind of, it could play out this way, but I don't need to be afraid because I can just watch it from a distance. And that's kind of funny because it is our real life, so it's not like we're separating ourselves from real life, but we have the ability to be more aware of what's going on, and then we have a more of a say in terms of how that's going to impact our life. And in the case of a panic attack, that's like, oh, this is happening, but honestly, I don't need this to impact me that much, even if it is happening. And I now have the room, I have the control to decide if I want to kind of give into that. So it's a little bit more of a long-term game, but even some shorter practices in this can really help. And another way to think about it is essentially, if our thoughts or our fears and all this stuff that's going on, especially in an intense moment, is like a waterfall. It's all rushing over, right? It's all, white water. It's pouring over, and we are carried right along with it. It's like we're going over that waterfall over and over again. And what this practice allows us to do, as we start to be aware of our emotions and our thoughts, and create a little bit of space between ourselves and them, is it's like we're be able to step out behind the waterfall. And that's a pretty neat experience. If you've ever seen that or seen a video or experienced it for real, is really neat. If you can get behind a waterfall, the water's rushing over your head and in front of you, and you can watch it all, it's coming down in front of you, but you're not drawn in. You're not in the current. You're still there witnessing it, but you're not in that current getting pulled downstream. And that's what's pretty neat about a mindfulness practice, is that you can start to recognize, and even if it's only for a few minutes at first, that you can be a witness to things without being right in them. And that is the key for this piece in terms of panic attacks. You need to start flexing that muscle. You need to start slowly working out that muscle to break down that new path that's going to allow you to step out of the waterfall, step off that path that you've walked on so many times, or that current that you've been pulled into so many times, and start being able to step outside that and witness it, and then take a new path. Because that's the beauty of it, is once we are able to be aware, to step out of the current, to step out of the pull, then we have the choice, we have the freedom, we have the space to take a new path, to take a different path, which is awesome. We can walk towards the things we want instead of being always sucked by things we're kind of afraid of. So yeah, I recommend Headspace. Calm, 10% Happier is another app, and I highly recommend their podcast. That's Dan Harris and his books, in terms of kind of understanding how this is a pretty neat game, and that we can actually change. We can change our brain, so it's not just like a thinking pattern. This is like starting to put money into a savings account where it starts to grow. And when we put in this time and start investing a little bit in some mindfulness meditation, we can start to grow that muscle which just ends up giving us more control over what's happening, more ability to witness what's going on, more ability to step out of these panic moments, and to almost not care that they're happening because we can kind of watch them like a movie. And it sounds weird, but it really does happen. And so I recommend getting started with one of those apps. That's the easiest way. There's tons of stuff on YouTube. There's tons of stuff out there, but this is going to give you the ability to. One final example is that, these anxieties or these panic attacks, we can picture them like a tug of war, where like you're tugging on the rope, you're fighting it, right? And it feels like the only way to win is to pull the rope harder and harder and harder. But the only problem is when you do that, it pulls back harder the other way. It's almost like there's that equal and opposite reaction, right? And so another way that this mindfulness intervention is described as is it's like putting down the rope. All you want to do is pull the rope, and it's like recognizing again and again that, wait a second, I keep getting told to pull the rope thinking it works, and it doesn't work. I keep getting bluffed. It's like you keep getting bluffed again and again, and without learning the lesson, though. So the mindfulness helps you to start learning the lesson, to know that, wait a second, I don't need to pull back on this rope. I don't need to take this same path. I don't need to go over the waterfall over and over again. I can step out of it. I can let go of the rope, and I can make a new path. Hope that's helpful, guys. It's been really helpful to me, and it really can start to make a difference. It's slow and steady. The nutrition's the big punch. This is kind of like the 2-punch. And both of these together are going to have a huge impact. We're going to get into some more tactics too. Sleep is huge. So we're going to probably do that next. Bringing in some exercise, and then maybe even before exercise is some tasks and some projects and some meaningful work to kind of distract you and help you to move out of this along with these other tools. So there's some other tactics coming up, but this is a huge one. I highly recommend. The more the better. If you can do 10 minutes and start with one of these apps, that's awesome, but at least start with 2 to 3 minutes a day, getting settled in and just getting some, even if it's a bit of breath work first, maybe we'll do another one on breath work, but just some slow breathing helps. But this is more than that. This is working that muscle in your head and making those new, those new neurons fire together and wire together, as they say. It's kind of like a bit cheesy, but it's like as you, the neurons that fire together wire together, and that's why this panic is a habit, because they're always making that connection. But you're going to make new connections, start making those, start strengthening those little by little each day. You're just going to slowly change your brain, physically change your brain, and you can turn down the knob in that anxiety. You can turn it right down. You can turn up your awareness to have the ability to step back from it, and it is like a mini superpower. So I'll leave it there, guys. Give that a try. Check out those apps. I'll try to drop them in the description, and I'll talk to you guys again soon.